And here's what Coleman Young said in 1981. I make no apologies for tax abatements. The 116 companies that have received abatements have invested nearly $500 million of their own money in Detroit. And of even greater importance, I believe, are the 3,000 new jobs we brought to Detroit. 40 years ago, Coleman Young understood that when you have a good-paying company with good-paying jobs and benefits, every city and state wants them. This is hand-to-hand combat to get these companies into Detroit so that our residents can get them, and nothing has changed today.
The thing I found interesting about this speech was how hard Duggan worked to sell this idea that tax abatements for big billion-dollar projects are necessary. And and going back and invoking Coleman Young, quoting Coleman Young, and noting that Coleman Young did these tax abatements back in the 70s and 80s. I mean, he seemed to be really concerned about community pushback to the tax abatements that this, in particular, the District Detroit developers are going to get.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of questions about it, and my big question that no one seems to address or be able to address is, look, when we were sold on, the first round of tax breaks for kind of the modern redevelopment of downtown Detroit, if you think about to the stadiums, right?
Yeah.
Late 90s, early 2000s, one of the lines that they used was this would make the market more rational and more investor friendly so that we would over time need less of this in order to attract people to develop things. But here we are 23 years later, and the Illiches and Stephen Ross have asked for, by my calculations, in raw numbers, the largest subsidy that we've ever given anyone, and it equals half the development cost. Things seem to be getting worse on that front, not better. And so one of the questions is this just something that developers have gotten used to and have decided they want as part of these projects, or is it really something that we need? The mayor's saying we have to have these things because of high taxes. I guess I'm not sold anymore that that's the case.
Well, I do believe that Detroit is not yet market rate for investors. I don't know if it'll ever be market rate for investors, but I also believe that as long as these breaks, these abatements are available, people are going to go for them. I mean, it's become part of the business plan, and you see it at every level. Look, I mean, the state of Michigan paid $700,000 per job for that Ford battery development out in Marshall. So, I mean, it's becoming the way business is done today. Now, the mayor makes the point that it's not a subsidy, it's not a tax break. We're not giving them anything because if they didn't build this, we wouldn't get any dollars in taxes off of it. So we're just getting less dollars in taxes than we might expect. I don't know if that's an argument that washes, but he clearly was concerned about getting community buy-in to this.
Yeah, I also feel like some of the language here is deceptive. This idea that we have moved from subsidies to abatements, no question. Right, back when Coleman was mayor, we were giving subsidies, we were writing checks to people to do these kind of things. We don't do that anymore. It is a tax abatement, but the idea that there's no cost associated with that is not right. It does give us less tax revenue over time. That tax revenue would be used to help support the services needed for the added development. If you think about all the things downtown that require city services and are not doing their share of paying for them, also the people who use those services are not doing their fair share of paying for it. If they don't live in the city, they don't pay any taxes. There are no fees. There are no excise taxes. There are not the things that other cities around the country use to make these things worthwhile for the citizens. And we do need to start thinking about how we get there in Detroit.
The other piece that intrigued me, Steve, was what he's doing with this big tranche of Biden bucks he has, the ARPA money and the COVID money, and the community partnerships he's trying to build for things like, fighting crime and building job skills and getting affordable housing. But the crime one is particularly intriguing, engaging community groups to bid on certain areas. Got $10 million pool here. You can get a grant for $750,000, pick a neighborhood and see if you can do things to address the root cause of violence in this community. If it works, I mean, it'll be brilliant. And,
Yeah.
there is reason to hope that it might work.
The
Nothing
key
else
there,
does.
yeah,
It's been tried in other places to mix results, but I mean, this is a program that's going to take a lot of accountability and a lot of oversight when you start throwing that kind of money out there and
yeah.
saying, "Hey, come up with an idea for fighting violence."
Yeah, I mean, the metrics are the key here, right?
Right.
How do you decide that what somebody or a group is doing is making some place safer? What? How do we define safer? How do we limit the threat of vigilantism when you do this kind of thing? Not that that's what people's proclivity is, but it's a possibility.
Right.
Managing these kind of things and deciding when they work is going to be the hardest part of it. And you're right. If they can pull that off and get some things that actually have success, it'll be great. But you do worry about that approach and how we make sure that it's aimed at actual safety.